Is your job search stuck? Maybe you're not getting any interviews with employers, or maybe you are, but no job offers. Or you may be new and not even know where to start. This is Charles Max Wood, and I'm releasing a new course and ebook on how to find a job as a software developer. The course walks you through the process of finding the types of companies you want to work for, getting their attention, and putting your best foot forward as the candidate they want. I've coached dozens of developers in looking for jobs and have been able to help several people find jobs within 2 weeks to 2 months. So whether you're new to development, can't find a great job that fits what you want, or are looking for remote work from an area without a strong tech community, I can help. Go to getacoderjob.com and sign up today. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of My JavaScript Story. This week we're talking to Henry Zhu. Henry, do you want to say hi?
Hey everyone, glad to be on.
Now, you're the maintainer of Babel, and we've had you on the show before. I should look up that episode number. Is there anything else you want to say as far as an introduction goes?
Yeah, I used to work at Adobe, and I live in New York right now. But yeah, I left my job in March. I'm trying to work on Babel full-time.
Nice. Yeah, it's nice too, just having somebody that's dedicated to the project. So we all appreciate the time you put in. Yeah, we talked to you in July on episode 321. And since then, you released Babel 7.
Yeah, finally.
I know, we should have held out on you a few months. Anyway, do you want to just briefly explain what the Babel project is, and then we'll jump in and we'll talk about your story, what you've done in JavaScript, all that good stuff?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so I would say that Babel is a translator, but it's a translator for programming languages, and the term we use for that is a compiler. I know that before people would use the word transpiler, but it's basically the same thing, except that it only translates JavaScript to JavaScript. And so most languages compile a higher level language to a lower level language, like C to like assembly. But instead, what we do is we take a later version of JavaScript and we compile it down to an older version. And the reason why you would do this is because you don't know what browser your users use. So even if they're not using Internet Explorer, but if they are, then that doesn't even get updated. So if you sent a newer version of JavaScript to that user, it would just error. And so you do this so that you can have like the widest variety of people to serve. So it's kind of an accessibility issue in a way as well. Just being able to know that, all these people that are still using old browsers, they can still go to my website.
Gotcha. Sounds good. Well, we'll dive into this a little bit more and, kind of capture your story as far as taking the project on and things like that. But let's back way up. How did you get into programming?
I feel like the earliest memory I have is I think I was in middle school, and then I partnered with my friend for like a science class. I think it was either like earth science, and then we made like a Flash animation about earthquakes. I think through that I got my start with programming. I guess to go back a little bit further, both my parents did programming as well. My mom worked with databases and my dad did various things. So I guess I grew up knowing about it. They never really encouraged me to do it per se, because they kept telling me like, it's not good for your health if you're just sitting there, because I had all these back issues, but here I am. So
Nice. Very cool. So how did you get into JavaScript then?
Yeah, I think through Flash, I made a few like games with some friends. And then I tried coding a Chinese card game called Shengji, which our parents played. And then in college, I did a bunch of hackathons, which was in various different languages, which I guess it's kind of like every hackathon you go to, you have to learn a new language. And just that was the only time I've used it. Like I tried Ruby once or PHP or C#. I think JavaScript was... So in college, I didn't major in computer science, but I really wanted to learn more because that's just what I was interested in. So I took a bunch of classes for fun. Like one of them was a data viz class, and I had the opportunity to code websites or visualizations. And I think I learned about Bootstrap then, and then D3. And so I did a bunch of stuff with that. But that was like before going into open source. But that was like actually going through and learning JavaScript.
Interesting. So you get in, you play with JavaScript. How did you settle on JavaScript? I mean, what was it that made you want to do that as opposed to some of these other languages that you tried once or twice and never went back to?
Yeah, I think my answer here is pretty similar to probably a lot of people, where having experience with, say, like Java or something, you have to install it and like all this setup. And then I felt like, I mean, it's even easier now, but you don't have to download anything. It's just like you can open a web page and it shows up. You can type stuff in the console, and then you can see all these examples of what other people have done, and it's easy to share. And now it's like a lot easier, so you can use like Code Sandbox or something like that and get something running. But
Right.
I think I liked the visual part of it, where it's like I wanted to make something that you could see. So that's maybe why I liked the visualizations and like UI, stuff like that.
Very cool. And then at some point you ran across Babel. So how did you get into that?
Yeah. So actually that I can do a little like step back on that too, where after college, I wanted to do software. So I kind of like totally threw away my degree in industrial engineering. Um, and so I think I didn't get into any of the, because I was trying to apply to all those top companies like Google and stuff. And then I was like, I might as well get a job. And so I applied to just various places. I just picked one that was local. And then during that time, I met this guy, Jonathan Neal, and he was at the company I was at the time. And he got me kind of into open source. Well, I wanted to do open source, but he kind of encouraged me to get started. And so through that, I was like, I should contribute to Angular 1, because that was really cool at the time. And then I found that it was really hard to contribute because it was a framework and I didn't get anything about it. But I found this one issue that was about like fixing like not a typo, a linting error. And so after doing that, I made like, I think like 30 commits or something to Angular. All I did was just like me finding, replacing, like, like adding a space here, stuff like that. And then through that, I was like, wait, the project that tells me where the errors are seemed a lot more interesting than Angular itself. And that project was called JSES, like JavaScript Style Checker. And so this is an old project now, and so I'm sure most people don't know about it. But I got involved there, and I thought it was really easy because there was like one file for the rule itself, and then one file for the test, and then one file for the docs. And it was just like really easy to contribute to. So I got involved there, did various things while I was working in, I'm from Georgia. And kind of like halfway through that, maybe like, I forgot, like 6 months in or a year in, I get an email from some people at Behance, which is part of Adobe. And so they kind of asked me like, hey, do you want to work at our company? And so through working on open source for this JavaScript project, I got my job at Behance. And so long story short, I was like, I didn't really want to move to New York, but I decided to, and I started working in New York. And then through that, I found out about ES LINT. Another long story short is that we merged the projects together. So that's why ES LINT is the thing that everyone knows now. And then through that, I found out about Babel ES LINT, which is kind of like a compatibility layer if you want to use Babel, but then lint, like new syntax. And then I found out about Babel. So it's funny that it took that whole process of like finding this linter and then finding this intersection between the linter and the compiler, and then going to this compiler. Yeah, and I didn't even know about Babel before. Like, I think I didn't know about it when it was called 6 to 5, actually.
Right.
I learned about it kind of quote unquote late.
So you get in, you kind of get interested in contributing to Babel. Was Sebastian still running it at that time, running the project?
Yeah, so at this time, I kind of had a little bit of experience like with maintaining a project through the linter, so JSES, but I barely did anything for Babel. And at the time, yeah, Sebastian was working on it, and he just, like around that time when I moved to New York, he released Babel 6. So I think that was like around November, December 2015 or 16. And I remember like that they did the Babel 6 blog post, and at the bottom it was like, thanks for all these people, and my name was there. I was like, whoa, what the, like I didn't do anything, but they're like,
you're internet famous now.
Right. And so I think that like really incentivized me to like kind of feel like, okay, they put my name there, I might as well do some work to like show that I actually did something.
Right.
And so I tried to do that. And during that time, that's when he kind of slowly stepped down, kind of because of the burnout and like everyone complaining about how horrible it was. And then that was the process of me and the other people like Logan on the project of slowly like becoming maintainers over time, even though we had no idea what we were doing. And I barely knew anything about like compilers or even, working on an open source project in general. So,
Right. So it seems like when I talk to people now, you're kind of the lead on Babel. Is that an appropriate characterization of your role?
it's weird. Like I don't really want to be known as the lead, but then if there isn't, then like who would it be? So I guess so. And maybe that's just because I'm the one spending the most time on it.
Right.
And I'm the one that quit their job to work on it. But it's kind of like, it's bad for me in the sense that I don't want everyone to ask me for questions when there's plenty of other people that are capable of helping. And if I want to get more people involved, I don't want me to be like this, figure that you're supposed to look up to.
Right.
Even though obviously I have experience and I'm willing to, guide people into getting involved as well. But yeah, I guess I am the lead then.
Right. I'm curious how that came about, because it didn't seem to me that Sebastian really just kind of said, okay, this guy's in charge now, right? He kind of backed out, and everybody else kind of stepped up to fill the void. And yeah, you eventually wound up quitting your job, and yeah, by virtue of that fact, you probably spend more time on it than anybody else. But yeah, how did that kind of crystallize?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think a lot of it is very natural. I think a lot of people joke about how most people that become maintainers do it by accident.
That's definitely true.
Or like you stumble upon it. I think we don't have a really good way, like as a community, of learning how to like step down or like transfer things. You can look back at a lot of different various projects, whether it's like, I don't know, Express or Node or Python, right? A lot of people stepping down, or Django, like, and then like they step down like a lot longer than you would expect. So like say they've been working on it for like 10 years or something, but they haven't been involved for like 3 of those, the end of those years,
Right.
because they're not sure on like that. And maybe there's that pressure of like, maybe people do see them as the lead, and so they feel even worse about leaving, and so they're kind of just sticking around the whole time, but people have already stepped up. And so what does it look like, to actually be like, maybe we should like eventually write that blog post that says I'm not involved anymore, and these people are doing it. And I think that's good especially for the person that's him or herself, right? I think that would make sense. But for us, it's like, yeah, I don't think Sebastian was ever like, I'm leaving. I think he wrote a blog post about like a year in review, and at the end he was like, I'm gonna like step down, but I'm still gonna be involved. But like slowly that just kind of slowly faded away. And then for me, it was kind of weird for me because I was always expecting him to come back. And so that kind of changed my attitude toward maintaining the project. I think that for everyone, right? We all thought like, oh, maybe it's not my place to like make big changes. And so for like a whole year, all we did was make bug fixes basically. And then there's a point where you're like, okay, I think, and maybe talking to him or whoever it is, like, hey, we should do something because clearly there are XYZ issues. And if we make these bigger changes, we can benefit the project. But it's like, when do you get to that point of feeling confident that you're allowed to do that or you're capable of doing that? And either way, you're going to be scared that you're going to do something wrong, especially if you knew that the person before got burnt out because of the community, right? So it's just difficult.
Yeah, absolutely. What's it like going full time on an open source project? And how do you do that?
Yeah, I don't know. I guess the same thing. There's no formula for sure. I don't want to claim that if you should do it my way. And maybe, even every project is different. Like a lot of the whole going full time is focused about money. And obviously that's a pretty basic issue. And so, if your project is more of a service, then maybe you should make a company, right? And you can do it as a service. But for Babel, it's like, it's a tool and it's related to the language. I just feel almost like weird, like if I made it a service. It just seems not like, I guess I could say morally wrong or whatever, but it's just, it seems like such an infrastructure thing. It doesn't feel like we should do it like that. But it also means that because it's infrastructure, no one really thinks about it, and you're even less likely to get help from anyone else because it's kind of underlying everything. And a good example of that has like even like say like Next.js or Create React App, like that gets way more buzz than that Babel itself, even though that's like a core part of how the project works.
Right.
Yeah, I think for doing full time, you can plan as much as you want, but when you actually do it, you're going to actually face the issues, right? So I don't know. I took like a year to figure out even if I wanted to make the decision, especially if you're already working, right? You're like, you have a nice job.
Oh, yeah.
Probably because you're a software engineer. It's like you're getting paid well, the people are nice, or you like your work, and going away for that to the risk of like seeing if that will even sustain or if you even want to do this. Because I think a lot of people want to do open source full time. It's like their dream. But it's like, is that actually what you want to do? Because maybe you do it like for fun, or you do it once in a while, and it sounds like it would be great, but then once it's your actual job, it's not as fun anymore, right?
Yeah. I get the same thing with like freelancing, or I'm full time doing the podcasts, and
Right.
like, boy, that's got to be nice, and you're your own boss, and blah blah blah, and yeah, sometimes sometimes it's not so fun, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's being realistic about that. Yeah.
So how do you pay the bills then?
Yeah. So for me, currently, I'm paying bills through Patreon, which is just like my patreon.com/Henry Zhu. And then we have an open collective. So for people that don't know, Patreon is kind of like a crowdfunding site, except unlike Kickstarter, which is like you're raising money to make some product and you're basically pre-ordering it. It's more like you're just donating to a person or a group for the thing that they do. And it's usually like content creation. Like maybe they are a YouTube channel and they don't want to make clickbait videos to get views. And so they rather make the content that they would appreciate and the things that people want. And so instead of the ads, you can just pay directly. And so I'm doing the same thing except with open source. Obviously, I'm already providing value to people by contributing and maintaining the project. And so it's weird because Patreon asks you to have like tiers where it's like, if you donate this much, then you get XYZ. And I figured I'm already giving value. I feel like if you're giving money, I don't know why I have to give even more of my time just because you're giving X amount. And so I try to like make it a little bit fun, where I think I had like, it's like if you pay $7 a month, then I'll play like board games with you if we're in the same area, or like if you pay X a month, then we'll get Korean barbecue because I like that. Like it's not like people are going to ask to do that every month or every day, but if that happens, then I'm happy to do that. It's just a way for someone to say I want to donate, right?
Right.
And so,
ton of sense.
Yeah, and that's only for like individual people. If you're actually like wanting to donate a significant amount, then you can donate like either to the Open Collective or just to a different tier in our Patreon. And there I'm like, okay, well, if you're going to give a lot, like $500 a month or something, then we can put your like logo or whatever it is on our website. Or if you're paying like thousands of dollars, then we can do then it could be more like a consulting thing or support contract, stuff like that.
Yeah, that makes sense. Awesome. Is there anything else that you've worked on in the JavaScript space that you're particularly proud of? You did talk through a few other projects, but I'm just wondering if something stands out as this was fun, or this was cool, or this really defines who I am.
I feel like at this point, I've been focusing mostly on Babel, but I did do a lot of work before that. Like I was saying, I worked on JSES. And I was I guess, core team member of that. And even simply going through the process of merging JSES and ESLint, that was an interesting event. We didn't really talk about it, but I think you find a lot of people either making new projects or forking projects, but you don't really hear about merging projects. And so the process of doing that was really interesting. I could probably write a blog post about that or something, but there's different people's expectations and ideas and egos and whatever it is, and it's hard to get people to be like, hey, let's do something that helps the community together. And then I also helped maintain Learn It before as well, so there's just various projects. I'm not involved in most of them at the moment, but because I'm trying to focus mostly on Babel. But yeah, I just try to help out with projects where I can. That's in the JS ecosystem space. Something I've been thinking about, like after like when I said this when I was leaving, I was like, not that I'm gonna leave Babel anytime soon, but I think it would be interesting to get involved in other projects from a like high level point of view, not really the day to day, but like thinking about like how do other projects maintain their open source projects and what can we learn from each other, from the meta point of view, like, okay, how, do they do meetings and how they do issue triage and support and releases, like that kind of stuff. I think that's really interesting to me.
Yep. So what are you working on now?
Yeah, so right now we just released 7, right, a while ago, and then we did a 7.1. So a lot of it is I'm not really sure what we should do next. I wrote a roadmap like a year ago, and I think a lot of those things are still relevant. So I think trying to figure out what we should work on next, like what's important, when should we do an 8, and not take as long as 2 years to do it, and then that's just in terms of like features, I guess. But I've been thinking a lot more about like the future of the project, like long term. So like how do we get more maintainers, not just contributors, but people that can like help review pull requests, stuff like that. It's like, we have a handful of people actually like willing and able to do that stuff. And so I want to spend more time doing that. Like I can spend a lot of time fixing bugs and doing all this stuff, but that's just short term, right? I think I want to invest in finding ways of getting more people in. Right. And not just through like we have Hacktoberfest now, and like we've also done Google Summer of Code. We've just done Rails Girls Summer of Code. So there's a lot of initiatives, and we've already done a lot of work. But maybe we can do something new. Like I want to maybe I can partner with like a local university. Might be interesting. Maybe they have like classes on open source. So I could do a workshop. Maybe do a local meetup where instead of talks, it's just like working on Babel or something. Yeah, I think there's a lot we can do. It's just like the problem is if that's the work that we're doing now in addition to all that stuff, then that's like crazy, right? So learning to like be okay with not releasing as often or fixing everything because someone told you like it's broken and you have to do it, right? And I think it's like, especially if you're full time, I should have the freedom to decide like what is good for this project and not just put out fires all day. Right. And so thinking about that is hard, but trying to prioritize like your own mental health and then the health of the project as a whole versus like caring about like how many releases did we do and how many stars do we have and how many downloads do we have, stuff like that. Yep. Yeah.
Very cool. If people want to find you online, where do they go?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, left_pad. I also have my website, which is basically links to everything else. I think it's henryzhu.com, but like ZOO.
Very cool. All right. Well, the last part of the show is picks. Do you have some things you want to shout out about?
Do you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device, on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Yeah. So I guess this counts as something I've been working on. I haven't released it yet, but I'm assuming when this goes out, it'll be live. So I've been working on my own podcast.
Nice.
And I'm planning on releasing it next week. So that'll be like GitHub Universe week. And so I've been working on this for like probably 3 or 4 months. and it's kind of different. So it's going to be a podcast about faith and open source, and kind of like talking about the intersection between the two. So kind of, it has nothing to do with code per se. So I think it should be interesting for people that don't even do like coding, but it's more about community, right? Like how in open source we're serving this community, and church we're doing the same thing.
Right.
And so I'm doing that, and I pre-recorded all the episodes. So it's kind of more like a season, I guess. So I'm going to have 10 episodes. We're just going to release it. No one's going to expect it, obviously, but I'm curious to see what the feedback will be, because it'll be very unique.
Awesome. Sounds terrific. I'm going to jump in with a few picks. Also, as you know, since you're talking about launching a podcast, I'm going to throw one in here. One of my co-hosts on Ruby Rogues, and by the time this goes live, it will probably long time have been released, because we're several weeks ahead on My JavaScript Story from when we record. So we're recording this probably mid-October. It's October 10th today, and we're probably going to release this sometime in November or December. But one of my co-hosts has been working with me to pull together a data podcast. So it's basically, collecting data, analyzing data, all that stuff. So that should be interesting, and that'll probably be live by the time this goes live. So if you head to devchat.tv and check it out, that would, that'll give you the information. I'm also working on reworking the way that we do the emails on the mailing list. So if you jump on the mailing list, we're just going to send an email out probably every Monday and let you know what episodes released last week across the entire network. And then what we're probably also going to do is we're probably also going to come back around and, if you want specific episodes sent to your inbox, then we'll send those along too. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, those are pretty much my picks. I don't think we have anything else. Henry, thank you for coming and talking to us.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll go ahead and wrap this one up, folks. And we will catch you all next week.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.